There's a voice deep inside every dad calling him to lead. Society, vices, inner demons, negative thoughts try to dampen and drown out that voice, but it never goes away. Your wife feels it, your children feel it, and your heart and soul feel it too. It's the voice that starts off as a whisper, but then becomes a calling to be the tip of the spear for your family, a calling to play all out and lead by example for your children, a calling to build a legacy that will go on for generations, a calling to be the warrior dad you were born to be. Dads, our children need us now more than ever to be that beacon of hope, courage, positivity, and strength. It's time to rise as warrior dads together as a brotherhood. If you felt that twinge in your soul, it's time for the Warrior Dad Experience. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Jeff Wickersham. I am extremely excited to have Amy Ambrozich on the show. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. If you would, please share with the audience your background. I know we're going to dive into dads and their role in a blended family, but would love to hear your background and share it with the audience.
Thank you so much, Jeff. So I am a certified parenting and stepfamily coach. I'm also a recognized smart stepfamily therapist through the Ron Deal program, which I'm super excited to be associated with. Mom of three, now flown and grown and out and on their own. My husband and I have been married 33 and a half years. So we've been in it for the long haul now. And I've been working with parents through the Worthington School District here locally for almost 2 decades now. So I've been in it and around it for quite a while.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing your experience and your background. So let's get into dads and their role in a blended family. I'd love to hear your perspective as well as what you hear common or some of the challenges that they face.
I was blessed to grow up. My mom and dad were married 65 years before we lost mom. And my dad was the leader of our family in a very gentle and quiet way, but he was definitely the leader of the family. But mom and dad had a great partnership. And that's a lot of what I base my coaching on when I'm working with couples is that partnership, but dad having that lead role and setting an example for the sons in the family. This is what a good man is. This is what a good husband and father looks like for you. And also for girls, my dad was the ultimate girl dad. It was amazing. He had 1 son and 4 girls, and He owned that role completely. So he set the bar for those of us that, were on the girl side of things. And, this is the kind of man we want to measure our boyfriends up against and see if they match up. So he set the bar for us and what we were going to choose for our future partners. So, and I think dads in particular, stepdads coming into that role, it's such an undefined role, step parent. Like, what does that even mean? And for everybody, it's so different. So when I work with couples and they're engaged in blending or just starting their blended family, and the dads come to me or the stepdads, they're like, look, I don't know what this means. What is my role? How am I supposed to be the leader of the family when I really am kind of the newbie in the family? So that's what I work with the couple together on.
Gotcha. Okay. And one thing that just popped out was partnership, right? Yeah. And explain what you see from a partnership perspective and what are some key things that set that partnership up for success when parenting?
When I work with my couples, that partnership, I define it as having a shared family foundation. So it's 3 parts. It's your family vision, the values that you're going to raise your kids with and instill in them, and then your family goals. So making sure that you and your partner are on the same page for those 3 things, make sure that you're aiming for the same end goal. If you were on a football field, we're aiming in the same direction when we're raising these kiddos. And then as the dad of the family, yes, you are the leader, but you are a leader in tandem with your wife in this process. So It's an equal but, partnership too, with a little bit of leadership from the male in the family, because he sets an example for everyone in the family.
Gotcha. And when you see that dynamic, do you feel that it could be a challenge sometimes for dads to be that leader, or they're sometimes not stepping into that role fully? How have you seen that in your
Oh,
experience?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. For stepdads just coming into a new blended family situation, it's hard for them because they want to step in and be the leader and discipline and, kind of run the house. But he's got to remember that the mom and her kiddos have that unique bond, and they've been doing it on their own for a while. So for him to just come in and start being the disciplinarian right away does not work. I always recommend for step parents the phrase connect before you correct, because you need to make that connection with the kids so they respect you, so they understand that you're not coming in to take over, that you are coming in as a partner with their mom. But you need to connect with the kids. Otherwise, you're going to get rebellion when you try to correct.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I loved how you had those three: sharing the family foundation. What was it? Vision, values, and goals.
Yes.
What, in your experience, how many partners, husband, wife, parents actually had that? I mean, it kind of, it strikes me as you said that even just laying that out, I'm saying 99% of people don't have those pieces in place.
We don't talk enough about preparing. We do preparing to marry, like let's plan a wedding, but we don't prepare ourselves as couples on what that parenting process is going to look like. When you put that family foundation in place, it makes so much more sense because you know that you're on the same page, you're shooting for the same things. It's something that even within premarital counseling, they don't really talk about that family foundation. Like, do your values, do they intersect? Do you share some? What are the outside values that maybe one of you is bringing in that the other one isn't really sure it's a major, issue for them? So we don't have those conversations. And that's why a lot of couples end up arguing about parenting or arguing about decisions within the family, because they're not on the same page because they didn't talk about those basics to begin with. The family vision, like what do we really want for our family? What is that going to look like? Not just right now while the kids are little, but long term. I remember my parents, we'd all get together for Christmas when mom and dad were still with us. And every year, dad would just kind of sit and watch the chaos of 5 kids and 8 grandkids and great grandkids. And it was all chaos. But he would sit back and with such pride, and I'd ask him, like, what do you think? And he's like, I'm amazed at what we did together. It to this day, that still kind of pulls at my heart a little bit, because those two work so well together because they were on the same page. And if they weren't, they had those conversations, came together to find that common ground, and then came back to us with it. So I think it's a foundation we don't talk enough about. And that's why when I work with my pre-blended couples, that's something I work hard with them. There's a whole pathway that I walk them through.
Yeah. I mean, I think just overall society in general, the dads, I mean, they don't even have a vision for themselves, let alone a vision for what the family dynamic is going to look like. And just based upon my experience, when there were differences, which there were, because we didn't necessarily think about the vision, but then we got on the same page and we communicated. And that's, especially from my wife and my perspective, the ability to do that. And then the ability to share it with our 2 boys, right? My son's 15 and 13. Here's how we operate, right? We have a family mantra, like things that connect us. And I feel like that's so powerful. And that's a great connection piece for the family. So that was vision. What about values, right? How does that kind of play out in the relationship and then the parenting dynamic?
That really came to a head for me in my coaching when I was sitting with they were married maybe 8 years. It was a blended family. And I remember her looking at him and saying, I get so frustrated with your kids because they're so disrespectful. And the look on his face was as if she had slapped him. And I thought, well, that was an interesting reaction. We had to unpeel that onion. And it turns out that they definitely defined respect differently, and what it looked like was different for both of them because of how they were raised differently with it. So when we talk about values, family values, I always ask them, but what does that look like? If they talk about, compassion, I pull them through that process and go, but what behaviors do you want to see when you're talking about compassion within the family? Because sometimes we define a particular word differently because of how we were raised within our own birth families. So having those 5 words, and I have a whole sheet of 55 words that they have to go through,
Okay.
narrow it down to 5 each. And then we have to figure out what are the 5 for the family. And we really peel it apart and say, but what does this look like? What does that feel like within your family? What does that mean for the kids? When you tell them to be respectful, you need to tell them what that looks like so they get it. And it's not just this word that you're throwing around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as far as unpacking it and however we're raised and our family as we were kids. We got a definition that's ours and ours alone. And you could have a word that you bring up in the family dynamic, and everybody in the family could have a different meaning or definition of it, unless you have those deep discussions and have a conversation as what does it truly mean and how do you see it. I can see where there definitely can be, a disconnect of people going different ways. And I know just in my family, when people are headed in different ways and you're not on the same wavelength, it can create a lot of challenges and potential problems in the whole family dynamic. And then goals, number 3, describe that. How are families doing that, blended families especially?
For goals, for my couples, sometimes it's very different from, one of them might be looking short term, like, look, we just got to figure out like how we're going to get the kids to school and back again, who's doing the little mundane things. Whereas other family members will be looking at the big overall goals, like how are we going to do holidays and how are we going to do vacations and the bigger things. So when I work with my couples, I work with both, like we need to figure out those little mundane things, like what does success look like for your family, within your family? And then how are we going to measure that? As coaches, that's what we always work with our clients on, is how are we going to measure the thing to know that you've been successful at it? For my step couples, so often it's the little things, like we just want to have a family dinner where no one wants to stab each other with a fork, because there's so much conflict as they're just beginning to blend and figure each other out. So sometimes it's a little tiny goal and sometimes it's bigger goals. Like we want to be able to get together for the holidays, even with the exes, and have that be an okay civil thing. And some families can do it. Most of them can't. But, setting those goals, it helps the couple figure out like, okay, this is the thing we're aiming towards. How are we going to get there? What are the steps we're going to take? How will we know when we're getting there? How will we know when this was successful? How will we assess what didn't work? But having them set those goals together really puts that teamwork approach into their parenting, which I think helps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like each one of those vision, values, and goals, you're laying that groundwork for that successful partnership, the successful blending. And now I could see it not only being applicable to a blended family, but just families in general, of being connected. And Amy, I'll share just in my experience this year, my family, we all sat down and wrote what was our 2023 missions and what we were going to chase. And we did it as a family. January 1st, after our pork and sauerkraut, lucky dinner. But it was so bonding to know that we were all connected and chasing excellence or pursuing excellence. And it's helped us throughout the year stay connected and cheer each other on and encourage each other, versus so many times everybody's going every which way. And when that happens, it's very difficult to get movement for everybody in that direction. So definitely love those that you shared with us. One thing that popped out was connecting before you correct. So stepdad jumping into a blended family, what are ways to connect that you've seen, maybe 1 or 2 ways that are low-hanging fruit where he can do that with maybe a stepchild and then build that relationship and that bond?
I always say go slow. you don't want to throw yourself in and, just take over everything. So for stepdads who are, we have to break it down by age too. If the kids are little, early elementary or even preschool, that stage, it's easier for a stepdad to kind of slide in and be a buddy and, take them to the park and things like that. That one-to-one time is really important. And littles are usually more welcoming to someone new into the environment in that way. When you get to the preteen, teen ages and you're trying to stepdad them, you definitely have to make that connection very slowly, very gently, ease into the picture. And I always tell birth moms, have him around, but in the background for a while. He doesn't have to be a part of everything all the time because the kids will feel like he's intruding. So just every once in a while, he can pop in and pop back out again. So the kids get used to him being in their environment. For that one-to-one time, get to know what your stepchildren's interests are and get involved in that. And it might be video games, it might be sports, it might be crafts, who knows, for each kid it's different, but get to know what they like, what they don't like, and find some common ground with them. It might be around a sports team, it might be around reading books. Find those little ways that you can very gently connect with the kiddo without actually overtaking them. And it might just be talking about, hey, how'd your soccer game go? And leave it at that one question and let it go. Ease your way into the picture instead of just coming in full force.
Okay. What recommendation would you make if it's a preteen or a teenager and they're kind of closed off to, I'm sure that happens where they're closed off to this new introduction to stepdad into the picture. What recommendations or suggestions can you give there?
Again, go slow. Just be in the vicinity and take on not necessarily a stepdad role right away, but I'm just another supportive adult in your circle. And leave it at that. And it might just be, wishing them a great day as they head out the door to school. And that might be all you get. You may get a grunt or, a smirk on the way out the door, but it's those little droplets that you add to the pond that eventually make a bigger pond. If you're getting a lot of resentment, sit back and ask yourself, why is this kid so resentful? It might be that they're afraid that you're trying to replace dad if dad's still in the picture. Or even if dad's not in the picture, they may be mad at you because, well, my dad rejected me. So what's to say that you're going to, stick around? So it might be an issue of that. It might be a loyalty issue of, if I like you, that might hurt my dad's feelings. So I can't like you, because it's going to be, hard on my dad if I'm even okay with you. So try to figure out behind the scenes and underneath the layers what that stepchild might be fussing with and fighting with internally that they can't really even verbalize. And it might just be that, look, my mom picked you. I didn't ask for my parents to get divorced. I didn't ask for you to become involved in our family. And I certainly didn't ask for you to be, my stepdad. There may be just some pushback completely because they don't really want you in the picture, and it's going to take them a while to get there because they had no choice in anything that's happened to them. Right. They didn't ask for the divorce. They didn't ask for you to show up. And they certainly didn't ask for mom to get remarried because we were fine without you. So you might get some resentment and pushback because, why are you even here? Why do you need to be here? So because they forget that mom is not just mom, she's also a human being and a woman who, needs that partnership. So from a kid's perspective, they're like, look, you're just an interloper and we really don't need you. So take it slow and try to understand where that kiddo's coming from. I had one stepdad, birth dad had passed away. Okay. So he was very, very conscious of that and very gentle with the kids and said, look, I'm not trying to replace your dad. In fact, I would love to hear stories about him. Tell me what you remember. Talk to me about what were those special things that you guys did for the holidays or your birthdays. So he brought dad into that conversation. After some time, the kids felt comfortable doing that with him. And that was so touching for the kids that they were like, oh, we don't have to pretend that dad didn't exist. It it just melted me the way he handled it. I thought it was perfect because he said, look, those kids had a dad before I showed up.
Right.
I'm not trying to replace him. I want him to still be a part of the conversation because he's a part of who they were.
Right. Wow,
Which I thought was so sweet.
That's a great story. Yeah, for sure. What if your dad encountered divorce? Now you mentioned, hey, the holidays with the exes aren't always, great events. What happens when there's a toxic side to it? And I've had experiences with friends and clients where divorce from the wife kind of provides some toxic ideas, thoughts into the kids, and then the kids resent dad from that point forward. How do you deal with that? What are some strategies, tools, tactics that those dads can leverage kind of in that dynamic?
Oh, the holidays can bring the best and the worst of people, can't it? So I would say if you're getting a lot of pushback, or if mom is talking about you in a very negative tone or whatever, when the kids are with you, you need to just let them say what they're going to say. Don't argue back with them because they're stuck in the middle between two adults who obviously have not finished their business with each other. So just say, I'm sorry that your mom said that. This is what it really is, the real facts. I do want to spend more time with you. This is just what the courts, decided on our timing right now. But just reassure the kids that you want to be with them, but please don't be the Disney dad, because the Disney dad just sets everybody up for failure, because when it's nothing but fun and games and all of that, and there's no rules and no structure and things like that, that makes it harder on mom when the kids get back. And then that's just going to inflate the conflict between the two of you. Have fun with your kids. Please don't misunderstand me. I want you to have a lovely time with your kids when you do have them. But there still needs to be rules and structure and discipline and things like that, because you're setting these kids up for their adulthood. And their adulthood is not going to be Disneyland every day. So make sure that you've got some structure in there while you're also having fun and enjoying that time with the kids. When it comes to holidays and the switching back and forth and things like that, that can feel very chaotic for the kids. And be cognizant of that and talk to them about that. I know this must be hard on you. You're here with me for a couple of hours, then you got to go back to mom's, and then you're coming back here, and there's a lot of shifting back and forth. Acknowledge with your kids that I get it, that this has got to be hard, and I'm sorry that this is the way it is. Just acknowledging their perspective once in a while will help you gain that favor with them for sure.
No, I love that piece, and acknowledging, and it's almost like getting on their level, right? Of communicating, understanding. And unfortunately, so many times I feel like we miss those opportunities because it's maybe a little uncomfortable, but I like to say, imagine how your kids are feeling in that process, right? They're extremely uncomfortable. They don't have your years of wisdom. So relating to them, getting at that level can help you definitely guide that conversation, and you create that bond because you're calling out how everybody's feeling. But many times the kiddos are too scared or don't want to face it. But you doing that shows courage, and you can build that bond a little bit deeper.
Absolutely. And I know some men have a hard time talking about the emotional part of it, but when they see you being vulnerable, they're going to be okay with then expressing their emotions too. So, and that might be hard and uncomfortable for everybody at the beginning, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets for sure. So, just be open with them and say, and you can even ask them, can you tell me what this feels like for you? Because you may be assuming one thing and they're actually feeling something else. So it's okay just to open end those questions. Say, can you tell me more about how this is for you, or what you're thinking about this thing? And just listen hard and hear what they're saying, because that's going to give you some great insight.
Yeah, I love the listen hard piece, right? Because I know I'm a fixer. I've developed the ability just to, especially with my wife and now with my kiddos, just listen, because I used to just listen and hear the issue, and then how do I fix it, right? Where if you can just listen, you take so much more in, and you're going to build that relationship so much deeper from that perspective. So Amy, been a great conversation. What are you working on? Where can people find you? Share that up with the audience, please.
Thank you so much. So I am creating, and it's in beta form by January 1st. It's going to be out there for the world to jump into. So it's a program called the Blended Family Blueprint, and it is for couples who are engaged in blending or already blended, and just working on all of those things that I shared about, your vision, values, and goals, making sure you're on the right page for that, understanding each other's perspective. It's a 7-step process that I go through with you. And then there's group coaching, and I have office hours where everybody gets together, and I purposely am designing it as a group thing because, yes, I have some insight, but you as a step parent also have some insight, or as a dad, you have some insight that you can share with everybody else in the group, things you've tried and didn't try, things like that. So people can find me at daretoparent.com. or under my name. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram under Amy Ambrozich. So if you want to look me up there, I'm always offering tips and strategies. And Fridays are always it's a series of questions. Every Friday there's a question for you to use at the dinner table. I call it Table Talks, a recipe for connection. So you can always pop into those, because we tend to ask our kids, so how was your day? And they say fine, and then that's it. So right. So those are they're open-ended questions, just kind of get the conversation going. But yep, Blended Family Blueprint is going to be up and running and ready to go come January 1st.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Dare to be uncommon. Love, lead, legacy. Create a legendary day. And I'll talk to you soon.